Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Meryl Fatemi. Getting into this next segment here, we're going to take a look at the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the Los Angeles Lakers 2 nights ago. They finished this game 117-95 in what was an absolute dominant fashion in general. It was an unbelievable game for the Minnesota Timberwolves and Anthony Edwards. A little bit of an injury scare for Anthony Edwards, but we're going to get into that in this segment and discuss some of the Lakers' struggles, some keys for them come next game, what they can improve upon, what they did well in game one. I don't think they had an awful game one. I think there were factors in favor for the Timberwolves and factors not so in favor of the Lakers. We're going to get into both sides of that coin, but before I move any further, I'd like to remind you guys to please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions that come in during the show. So to ensure that your question gets read on air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I see it, and it also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. And like I've mentioned before, your guys' comments, both positive, negative, what we're doing well on the show, what we can improve upon, any general questions as I'm talking that you want me to clarify on, some perspectives that you have that you want me to answer, whatever you have, anything and everything is appreciated. And you guys are a big part of what we do here at the GSMC Sports Network. So we appreciate you guys, and everything is appreciated. But getting right back into it here, I mentioned the Los Angeles Lakers falling to the Minnesota Timberwolves in what was easily, I keep saying this, but honestly, every game in these playoffs is unbelievable. This game was another reminder of how good the NBA playoffs is this season, is going to be this season, with the Minnesota Timberwolves taking game one against the Los Angeles Lakers in pure dominant fashion in general. I said the other one was dominant fashion, but this one was pure dominance. After going on a 38-20 run to close in the second quarter, it was the Minnesota Timberwolves show all night. Anthony Edwards finishing with 22 points. Three Minnesota Timberwolves players finishing over 20 plus. It was just raining threes in that building. It's really the only way I can describe it. Finishing the third quarter, going 15 of 26 from 3-point range. Jaden McDaniels going for 25 points. Naz Reid with 23 points. And Anthony Edwards with 22. I mentioned Naz Reid to start the show. He played a big role in this game, going 6 of 9 from 3-point range, 8 of 12 from the field. For a player like Naz Reid, who hasn't really been getting as many minutes as he has last year. Last year, obviously finishing as the sixth man of the year, but he's still a premier player for this team. He's a major part of what they do on offense. Coming off the bench for this team. You kind of plug him in depending on what you need. Sometimes the Timberwolves say you need more of a defensive talent. You plug in a Jaden McDaniels like they did in this game. But sometimes you also you're going into a game that's most likely going to be a shootout. Say if the Minnesota Timberwolves are taking on the Boston Celtics in a playoff series. If I'm Coach Finch, I'm probably going to play Naz Reid over Jaden McDaniels because of an extra shooting threat to keep up with the pace that the Boston Celtics play with. So that's the type of player Naz Reid is. He is a sixth man. He comes off the bench, but he's a plug-in kind of guy. You plug him in whenever you need him, plug in, plug out. If you need offense, need defense, use him in different situations, and that's how the Timberwolves have been using him all year long. But yeah, I really do think this game was more Timberwolves than Lakers. Switching over to the other side, Luka finishing with 37 points in this one. We know Luka Dončić has a long history against the Minnesota Timberwolves in the playoffs. We remember last year in the Western Conference Finals when the Mavericks took out the Timberwolves in 5 games. It was a 5-game series, but each of those 5 games were very close games. We remember Luka Dončić hitting the game winner over Rudy Gobert. We know we've seen it time and time again in the clutch with Luka Dončić hitting timely shots. Not only that game 4 against Rudy Gobert, I believe if I think back, I'm trying to think, but I think it was game 2. He also hit another 3 over Anthony Edwards. It wasn't a game winner, but it was down the stretch with about 2 minutes to play, and Luka Dončić hitting a 35-foot three-pointer from way outside to put the game on ice, pretty close to ice, in the final 2 minutes of that game. But yeah, Luka has a lot of history against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and we know there's no love lost between Anthony Edwards and Luka. Anthony Edwards always playing with a chip on his shoulder. I mentioned at the top of the show he had a little bit of an injury scare in this one. Nothing that really came to that hit me off the bat when I saw the injury, but he pretty much went for a fall-away jumper, and as he landed, I think he just landed awkwardly and he strained his calf. If you ask me, they're calling it a cramp. That's what the injury doctors for the Minnesota Timberwolves said. They said it was just a little bit of a calf strain, but I've seen a lot of calf strains a lot of cramps in my day. That didn't look like a cramp, I'd say. I'm not calling anybody a liar or anything. I'm just saying I'm saying it could be a little bit extra than what they're reporting. We see this a lot of times with players in the NBA. Not fully reporting their injuries, especially in the playoffs, because they don't want to miss games. And yeah, Anthony Edwards was in a lot of discomfort coming off the court, with an obvious limp. Coming back into the game, he hit an unbelievable 3 over Luka Dončić in what was honestly a highlight play. You probably saw it if you've seen it online. There was a little bit of a celebration from Anthony Edwards in that one in front of Luka Dončić, so it was a little bit of a highlight play for him. But in general, I think this game I would point the finger and just say, if there was a factor that really determined this game, it would be the 3-point shooting of the Minnesota Timberwolves. At the same time, you can't say the Lakers' defense was so porous in this one that the Minnesota Timberwolves players were so wide open that they just couldn't pass up the opportunity to take the threes that they had. The shots given to them, they couldn't pass up on them. But yeah, I would say this series, that game at least, I would say had a lot to do with the shooting of the Minnesota Timberwolves than it had to do with the overall play of the Lakers. The Lakers tried to make a push at the end of this game, especially when Anthony Edwards went over to the locker room, bringing the lead all the way down to 12 points, I believe, at one point in the third quarter. But at the end of the day, like I mentioned, you can't really... A team that shoots 15 of 26 in the middle of the third quarter, I'm trying to find exactly what they finished with. But 15 of 26 from three-point range to finish the third quarter for the Minnesota Timberwolves. When that's just over 60% shooting from the stripe. And if you can't match that from the Lakers, if you can't shoot equally as well, LeBron going 1 for 5, Luka going 5 for 10, Austin Reeves going 3 for 8. He was one of their better 3-point shooters down the stretch. In general, if you can't really match up when you're scoring 2s and the other team is scoring 3s. It's a math problem, as the great Steve Van Gundy would say, as he said yesterday on the telecast. Overall this series, I still believe this series is going to come down to the big 3 of the Los Angeles Lakers, with Luka Dončić, LeBron James, Austin Reeves. Luka finishing with 37, LeBron with 19, Austin Reeves with 16 in this one. You just need more scoring overall between the three guys, because outside of those three guys, there really isn't very many scorers for this Lakers team, and I think that is going to be the biggest issue with this Lakers team. The fact that they're not a very deep squad, the fact that they're not the biggest defensive team. It's just three guys, three offensive reliable guys that can make timely shots. Austin Reeves really blooming into this role this season. That's why I would put him in that role. I would put him in that conversation. We've seen LeBron James over the last 20 years of his career. We've seen Luka Dončić just look back into last season of how clutch he's been down the stretch here, especially in the playoffs, how he turns up, similar to how Jimmy Butler turns up the intensity in the playoffs. Luka Dončić has a similar tendency. But yeah, I think game 2 of the series in LA is going to be crucial. The Minnesota Timberwolves already stealing game 1 from the Lakers on their home floor. The Lakers are going to have to go into Minnesota and take one of theirs if they're going to want this series to be competitive. But game 2 is going to be must win for this Lakers team if they're going to have any confidence going into Minnesota and thinking they can take game 3 or game 4. But I'm going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the Oklahoma City Thunder and Memphis Grizzlies series kicking off yesterday. I don't want to talk a whole lot about it, just because you'll see what I mean. It wasn't the prettiest performance from the Memphis Grizzlies, and it wasn't the prettiest performance from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So the question is, what happened to the Memphis Grizzlies? Is it a better thing? Is it a better note on a better look as a young Oklahoma City Thunder team, or is it a bad look on the Memphis Grizzlies? We're gonna take a look. We're gonna take a look at both sides of that coin. Look across the board, and the question is it too early to bring out the brooms for the Oklahoma City Thunder?